Hello, everyone. Yes, yeah. Can you hear me?
أهلا وسهلا. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. We're just waiting for, oh, Amjad is online. Amjad, do you want to share your screen? Amjad, can you hear?
مرحبا جميعا، كيفك باشمهندسة؟
أهلا أمجد.
مرحبا. هلا.
صباح الخير للجميع.
صباح الخير.
Good morning, everyone. صباح الخير للجميع.
صباح الخير.
Hope you guys are enjoying your long weekend.
Let me know, Amjad, if you can share your screen. I put on the sharing, so
Yes.
let me know.
Are we all ready to start the meeting?
Yes, please go ahead. Towards the end of the meeting, around the last 5-10 minutes, if we have time, the meeting I think will be half hour to 45 minutes.
Okay.
If you have time and you want to stick around, maybe we can like convene for another 15 minutes on the same link. But if we cover the subject relatively good, then maybe we don't need that extra 15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So today we'll be discussing the environmental integrity of buildings in Ontario. And this is very important subject to know about buildings in Ontario. Thank you, Lulwa, for bringing that subject up. It is very essential for everyone in this industry to have a clear understanding of what does that mean.
Amjad, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how you acquired this expertise or this experience, that would be great, like a short
Of course.
yourself. Yes, please.
So my name is Amjad Shindi. I'm holding a bachelor degree of architecture from Ajman University in United Arab Emirates. I had a few years working in architecture in Dubai, then moved to Canada. I had also about 7 years now working in Canada. I used to work in local architectural firms in Ottawa. Small firms gained me a lot through a lot of experience and actual real life experience, of course. And then I started my own architectural firm in Ottawa about 2 years ago. I designed lots of buildings, different type of buildings, from residential, mixed use, apartment buildings, and single family homes, of course, detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and townhouses. In our firm, of course, I take care of the planning and design component. And what I mean planning, by meeting all these zoning requirements, trying to figure out if there is any other solution beyond the permitted requirements. And of course, when it comes to the building permit application, making sure we have the full understanding of Ontario building codes and how that would be applicable to every design that we have. So sometimes the impact of the building codes would start from the very preliminary conceptual schematic design. Every designer, I believe, should have the enough knowledge from day one when starting a project to keep in mind what is the requirement of building codes. in terms of the category of building, of course, in terms of what part of building codes that building would be falling in. And I hope that everyone we have here knows the different types of buildings according to building codes. So the definition of building codes, of course, will be in Division A, Part 1. I will give you a brief explanation of what type of buildings are there and what part of building code they're falling in. And of course, as per building codes and in Ontario, the environmental integrity and thermal insulation is a very important factor. In fact, it's one of the most important factors when it comes to design a building in Ontario, and not even Ontario, in Canada overall. So two things for me to understand very carefully in building codes is the fire separation, fire protection, and the thermal insulation part of it. The reason why I'm saying that, because of the cold nature of the country, that's number one. Number two, not well designed or well thought thermal insulation into the building could cause lots of safety and health issues in the very short period of time. Could cause lots of condensation, molds, air leakages into the building, link between the heated space and the cold space directly could cause right away condensation, and that could cause mold in the very near future. So today I'll try to be very small and sufficient. It's a wide subject, of course. It's a very generic subject for the environmental integrity of building. The reason why I'm referring that, I will be very particular in my wording, using the actual legal wording as being described in the building codes.
Amjad, can you just, if we can begin, when exactly would someone start looking at the SB-12? Would it be the beginning of the design? Like what stage do you advise one to start looking at it?
I would say from the design stage, from the very preliminary design stage.
Okay.
The reason why I'm saying that, because you have to accommodate for the requirements of the SB-12 or SB-10 in some other cases, of course, and the wall assembly of your building. So your wall assembly will be dependent on the type of insulation required for the building. So that gives you the actual width of walls, exterior walls. And of course, you have different types of exterior walls in terms of the exterior finishes. That's a total different subject. But to know whether to use 1 inch of continuous insulation, let's say on the outside, whether to use 2 inch, whether to use 3 inch, all of that will be dependent on the knowledge, how to know what parts or what type of insulation required for such a building. So it is very important. Thank you, Lula. That's a very good question. So knowing the type of building, I will start how to reach to the SB-12. So before that, in Division B, Part 12 is speaking about the environmental integrity of buildings. So if you ever wonder where to find the actual requirements of thermal insulation or environmental integrity for your building, because we have different sections, we have different chapters, we have different divisions of where your building would be falling exactly. And it's very important how to know to navigate through the building codes and how to reach to the right information and to the right requirement. So I would start from Part 12 of Division B of the building codes. That would be the first indicating the description of what type of environmental integrity your building is falling within. I'll try to be, as I said, very small and sufficient to deliver the right information for you guys today. So on the SB-12, sorry, it's in the part 12 of Division B of the building codes. The subject of that part is the resource conservation and environmental integrity. So you have two main categories for that. Number one, for building designed before January 1st, 2017. And number two is energy efficiency design for buildings after December 31st, 2016. So these are the main two categories you have to look at when you design your building to see whether you have a building designed after December 31, 2016, or before January 1st, 2017. Now you would ask me, why would I go to buildings that had been designed before January 1st, 2017? That applies for addition work, applies for renovation and alteration work of buildings.
So let me ask you a question. So are you saying, to addition to an existing building, we go before December 31st?
Yes.
The building
So
the existing building is built before, even if it's a new addition?
if it's a new addition and the primary building was built before January 1st of 2017, that would be falling under that section.
Interesting. Okay.
And of course, if it's falling, if you're doing an addition to a primary building that was built after December 31st, 2016 until today, then you'll be falling under that section. And that applies for all new buildings as well. So all new buildings would be falling under section 12.2.1.2 of the building codes, energy efficiency design after December 31st, 2016. Now, the important part is, again, after that, what is the next step? So now we know what we will be doing with the scope of work of the proposed building or a proposed building. We know the dates when the building was constructed or to be constructed. We know whether it's going to be a brand new build or an addition. After that, what's next? After that would be knowing the category of the building based on its size and its use as per the building code's definitions. As we are getting into the SB-12 explanation today, so SB-12 section of the energy efficiency applies to the following buildings. And I will highlight that. So in number 3, and this is for buildings before January 1st, I'm just going to zoom in on the information. So for the energy efficiency design before January 2017, number 3, except as provided in sentence 4, the energy efficiency of building or part of a building of a residential occupancy that is within the scope of part 9. And this is very important to be aware of. The residential occupancy within the scope of part 9. This is the key word that you have in determining the actual environmental requirements for your building. So when you have a residential building falling within the part 9 of the building codes, then that would be right away in SB-12 requirements in any case. All other cases will be falling under the SB-10. And that's a total different subject. So if you have, sometimes people would mix up having a Part 9 building, but it's not residential. When you have a Part 9 building that is not residential, then it's not falling under the SB-12. So this is the key point that we have here. And the other key point, but I'm just going to go briefly. The other wording or legal wording to that is all buildings. So that means all buildings except residential occupancy buildings falling within Part 9. That would be
SB-10.
SB-10, confirming to the SB-10. So this is where to start from. So if you ever were lost or confused how to categorize your building for thermal insulation requirements, Part 12 of Division B is the reference. You start from there. And then it gives you, as we said, so all residential buildings occupancy within Part 9 will be confirmed to Chapter 1 and 2 of the Supplementary Standard SB-12 Energy Efficiency for Housing. And that's another thing that we have to be careful in choosing the right thermal insulation requirements. So Chapter 1 and 2 would be for most of the existing buildings, renovation and alterations, or additions to existing buildings that were built, of course, before January 1st, 2017. So that would be in Chapter 1 and 2 of SB-12, and I will be coming to that shortly. Now, what happens to brand new buildings? All brand new buildings will be described in the energy efficiency design after December 31st, 2016. And of course, we have two categories of buildings defined under that section of the building codes. So we have number 1, all buildings. Number 2, residential buildings within the Part 9 of the building codes. And then, of course, for number 2, explains all buildings requirement. And of course, that is for a brand new building. And it gives you exactly the divisions of SB-10 that you need to search for your thermal insulation requirements. Number 3 here, it shows part of a building of a residential occupancy again that is fallen within the scope of Part 9. And this is the keyword that we have here. This is very important that we know and be very particular to know the size of the building and the type of occupancy. So residential occupancy, Part 9 buildings will be in SB-12 requirements. And then it tells you that should confirm to Chapter 1 and 3 of the SB-12. So we know right away that brand new buildings that we will be designing will be falling under, for residential occupancy within Part 9, will be falling under Chapter 1 and 3 of SB-12. So this is the start. This is the start where we will navigate through building codes in order for us to achieve the minimum performance required as per building codes for the environmental integrity of the building. I hope as everything is clear. If you guys have any question, please let me know before I move to the next stage.
No, this part is clear, I guess. Yep.
Okay. So now we will go to SB-12 of the volume 2 of the building codes.
Quick question. So Amjad, how different are they? Are they very different before January and before December?
Yes.
Very different. Oh, okay.
There are lots of details to be involved in that.
But I mean, are they, there's some main points that are similar in both, but details are different. Like in concept of how to use them, they're both the same. Like if you start explaining one, we can figure out the second type, right? Or no?
Like if I can explain, sorry, could you repeat your question, Lulwa?
Yeah, like if you explain, let's say before January, or before January or after December, like if you explain one of them, would they be similarly used, or they're different?
In
Like terms of how to use it or how to navigate through it.
No, it will be the same method. It will be the same method of how to navigate through them.
I'm just wondering, if you describe one, and we don't have enough time, it will be easy for somebody to follow on the second part without. Is that the case?
Yes, I will explain then the brand new part.
Yeah, or would we have to have a second session on the other part? I wonder.
Well, probably that would give an idea roughly on how to navigate through everything.
So should we start with the new building or the existing? Like which one's more used? Which one's more?
I will go with the new buildings.
Okay.
For today, yeah.
Okay.
And if we think we need another session, probably if there is something unclear, we can have another session for that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So as we said in part 12 of division B of the building codes, brand new buildings or buildings after December 31st, 2016 will be falling under chapter 1 and chapter 3 of SB-12. Of course, chapter 1 is general, so it applies for both of them, both of the situations. Now, chapter 3 will be in particular for buildings after December 31st, 2016. So this is the key word that we need to be aware of in SB-12. And then we have two methods of compliance. We have the prescriptive compliance, and we have other acceptable compliance methods. And I'll come to that after I explain a little bit about how to navigate through the requirements of chapter 3. So chapter 1 is general for both. It explains to you all the general terms, defined terms, all the abbreviations, reference documents. And then chapter 2, as we said earlier, will be for energy compliance, efficiency compliance before January 1st, 2017. And chapter 3, I'm just going to navigate quickly to chapter 3. Chapter 3 will be the acceptable solutions for energy efficiency compliance after December 31st, 2016. So what are the methods for achieving energy efficiency compliance? The prescriptive compliance packages. The prescriptive compliance packages, these are the packages defined for building codes. So these are acceptable methods or solutions wanted through testing by building codes performance. Within that, we have two categories to follow. We have two zones in Ontario that the design of the thermal insulation based on. Number one is zone 1. What does that mean? Building is located in zone 1 with less than 5,000 heating degree days. This is very important to know about as well. You have to know your building where it is located. And SB-1 of volume 2 explains the climatic and seismic data of different locations in Ontario. We have to refer to SB-1 in order to identify what the number we have for the city in Ontario that the proposed building will be located at. I'm just going to go to SB-1. I'm going to show you an example of what to look for. In the climatic design data, you have a table for all the cities in Ontario. And then they are alphabetically in order. And it shows here the degree days below 18. And then you have this number here. And that what SB-12 is asking you to look for before determining the actual thermal insulation requirements for your building. What does that number mean? That number means an amount of heating required to heat buildings in a year and location that has days less than 18 degrees. So what is, let's say, the coefficient number of heating this building per, let's say, square meter, square foot? I don't know. I did not go through the detail. How did they come up with these numbers? But this is the amount of heating required for such building for days below 18 degrees. So that means, in another wording, higher numbers, that means it's a colder area. So higher numbers of degree days below 18 Celsius means that is a colder area in Ontario because you need more of heat to warm up that building. And this is what the definition of zone 1 and zone 2 as per SB-12 and why they are asking for that.
So zone 1 would be everything under 5,000, and
Yes.
zone 2 is everything over 5,000, like the one
Exactly.
I highlighted.
And fortunately, Southern Ontario area falling under the 5,000, we have warmer days, warmer cities, of course. So in the GTA area, usually it is under 5,000. So the amount of heat required to warm up a building or heat up a building during the year is less than 5,000 units. So most of our GTA region, even Ottawa, where I'm from, it is falling under the 5,000. Although the 5,000 is more to the northern part of Ontario because it requires more heat, of course, to heat buildings.
Okay, so for the sake of example, we'll determine zone 1 is our building, like we're having a hypothetical building, and we'll say it's zone 1. And let's continue as if we have a building with zone 1, right?
Yes, I will show you that.
Okay.
Now, after that, from Article 1 to Article 22, These are very important requirements you need to go through. It tells you methodology of what to include and what not to include. The most important part as we coming now to these buildings, after, let's say, we have a building now, it's a brand new, it's located in the GTA area. So that would be residential building, part 9, of course, less than 5,000 units for heating the building, falling under zone 1. What is next? The most important part.
Sorry to cut you off there. There's only 10 more minutes in this Zoom meeting, so I'm suggesting that we, once it cuts off, we just go back to the same link and, continue.
Okay.
Okay.
No problem. So the most important part in going through the calculation of the thermal insulation or energy efficiency requirements is the ratio between the openings in buildings and the overall area of exterior walls. And what I mean by exterior walls, they are the walls that act as a partition between heated areas and not heated areas. And that would be the exterior walls. And as per SB-12, it is required that you remain within certain percentage of ratio between openings, area of overall openings in exterior walls, and the overall area of exterior walls. And that will explain in number 7. And it shows the ratio of gross area of windows, side lights, skylights, glazing indoors, and sliding glass doors to the gross area of peripheral walls measured from grade to the top of the uppermost ceiling is not more than 17%. The building shall comply. They'll give you different tables to comply with. So the first thing to know, this is all about, when we speak about the energy efficiency, it's more related to the ratio of openings to wall areas, because openings would be the best thermal bridges to any building. And that's what we need to consider. And after that, it tells you, I will, Lulu, I think I will bring a real sample now to explain these points. I think that would be more clear to identify some of these points as we go through.
Yep. But basically what 7 and 8 is saying is that if a ratio of the windows and openings to exterior walls is less than 13%, there are certain tables you follow. And if it's between 13 and 22 or something, there are different tables to follow.
Yes, so sorry, it's between 17 and 22. These are the numbers that we have. So anything is not more than 17%, which means the overall area of openings to the overall area of exterior walls. And that, of course, the exterior walls again, the walls separating conditioned spaces from unconditioned spaces. In other wording, heated spaces and non-heated spaces. So the garage is not considered as a heated space in a building. So 7 and 8 will tell you exactly the tables that you need to look for the requirements of thermal insulation in your building assemblies. Then if you have it from 17 to 22%, then you would be needing to fall under different requirement of tables. Sorry, not different requirement of table. I'm going to be very particular in this one here. The same requirement of tables. The difference is you need to increase the quality of thermal conductivity of your windows. So that means you need to reduce, because now you have more windows, more openings in your building. So you have to have upgraded windows to a certain level to compensate for the increased area of these openings. And of course, they go by the overall coefficient of heat transfer. The lower number you have in windows, more effective they are, because they tend to transfer less heat between conditioned space and unconditioned space. And that's why they're asking you to upgrade your windows in some areas from 1.6 to 1.8 to 1.6 to compensate to the increase of amount of the ratio between windows and walls. And that would be for the 17 to 22%. And now here, and the other points, unfortunately, we have to calculate skylights areas to be part of the ratio of openings to walls, even though we keep questioning, why would we calculate the skylight and we do not calculate the area of when we building codes? So whatever openings you have, including the skylights, needed to be calculated in the ratio between overall area of openings to overall area of walls, from grade to the underside of the uppermost ceiling. And of course, this is more of a detailed options here, telling you about whether you have a walkout basement, how would you treat that one, whether you have a door in that walkout basement, would it be calculated in the calculation that you need to include? Sometimes it gets really critical. Sometimes you have lots of opening and your walls cannot have the enough area to achieve the ratio less than 22% or less than 17%. Very important to know what to include in the area of the openings. You have to include the rough opening area, not the glass only, not the size of the window only. And the difference between the actual size of the window and the rough opening of a window is that we leave usually in the construction ½ inch of a space around the actual frame or size of windows for installers to have more flexibility in installing these windows. So we calculated from the rough opening of windows to include in the calculation of the ratio.
And that's because that's where all the leaks happen if you are not,
Exactly.
if your detail is not correctly
Exactly.
implemented.
So it is important to know what to calculate in the overall gross area of openings. You have to calculate from the rough opening. And for doors, you only calculate the area of glass. You do not calculate from the rough openings, because doors are solid components that could act as a good thermal insulation by itself. By it means as per the building codes. So you do not need to calculate doors if they do not have windows. So let's say you have a solid entrance door to your building, then you do not to calculate the area of that door in your calculations. And the same thing would apply for the garage doors. You do not need to include